Hi, good day to you. I hope you are well. I hope you are surviving the lockdown. I know we live in unprecedented times. It's a difficult time, but I really want to just encourage you, try and stay up, even though things are down at the moment. I've been asked to chat to you about a couple of principles that you may be able to apply to be able to survive the current lockdown. Now, if I look around the world, 80% of the global workforce is unable to work in the normal way that they would normally work. The latest statistics out of South Africa is that 1 in every 5 businesses in our country have had to lay off staff. If you own your own business, your income that's coming in has obviously fallen in most industries, that is. If you're in sales, the same thing holds true. Most people have seen a big decline in the income that they've earned. What's gone on as well is that many companies have made the option or the decision to reduce salaries during this time. And while there's certain areas in your life where your expenses might be reduced, I know these are tough times. And so a lot of people feel that when the next end of the month comes and people start receiving their reduced incomes and debit orders have to come up, that this is going to be the turning point. And against this backdrop, I want to share a couple of practical steps that you can possibly apply to help survive the lockdown. Now, if you were about to face a storm, I'm pretty certain that you would stock up on the basic essentials. I'm pretty certain that you'd batten down the hatches and that you would isolate your family and yourself until that ferocious storm passed over. And in the same way, you need to put some processes and measures in place to survive the lockdown. Now, I know it's easy to worry. It's easy to get stressed out when we look at these unprecedented events that are wreaking havoc with our economy and with the world at large. And so I want to challenge you not to panic during this time. I want to rather encourage you, hold on to God. I promise you, He's got your back. He wants to walk the journey with you. Set up a survival plan and wait patiently, for the storm will eventually pass and the sun will shine again. Now, Proverbs 22:3 gives us a bit of advice. It says, a prudent person foresees danger and takes refuge. In other words, a wise person sees the danger and takes the necessary precaution. And so that's why today I want to share a couple of practical steps that possibly you can apply to survive this lockdown. Proverbs 22:3 says, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions, but the simpleton or the fool just goes blindly ahead and suffers the consequences. It is therefore vital that we take necessary precautions to get through this dangerous period. Yes, we are living in uncertain times. Global economies are under a lot of strain. And against this backdrop, I want to share a couple of tips with you that you can set up so that you can financially survive the lockdown. And so step number one that I would really encourage you is you need to take a safety first strategy. When in danger, you should really try and put the right protections in place. You should also focus on having the basic essentials in place during the lockdown. And the first point I would give you is it's important that you've got decent cash flow intact. Your cash flow is going to ensure that you've got money available to cover your basics during this period. If your salary's taken a bit of a hit, yes, that can be a little bit tough, but you need to put some money aside. You can contact your bank. Maybe you've got some money set aside in a reserve account. If not, maybe there's something that you can sell, but it's important that you've got cash flow to get you through this period. I know that it's going to cost you a little bit less to cover your basic expenses during lockdown. I know things like transportation and entertainment will be out of your budget. So that helps a little bit, but make certain that you've got the right cash flow available should an unforeseen need arise. And that takes me to my second point. It's important that you've got a cash reserve set aside. Now, on financial matters, over the years, we've tried to really stress the need to set funds aside to cover the emergencies of life. And so I really would encourage you to have some money set aside in a separate bank account so that you can cover the extras that may arise out of the current situation where you find yourself in. How can you do that? Put some money aside. If you don't have the money, maybe you can contact your bank and arrange some kind of facility, or even better, if you've got something that maybe you can sell, try sell it to free up that extra cash flow. That cash flow can help you out during a difficult time. And so it is important to set some money aside. Listen to what it says in Proverbs 6 verse 6. It says, take a lesson from the ants. I just saw a couple of ants in the garden this morning. It says, take a lesson from the ants. The New Living says, you lazy bones, learn from their ways and become wise. Though they have no ruler to make them work, they work hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. In other words, what do the ants do? They gather all this food, but they don't eat it all. They set some of it aside to last them through the winters of life. When we face storms, it's important that you've got that cash flow set aside. Now, earlier this week, our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, addressed the nation, and he told us that they have put some dramatic measures in place to help South Africans through this lockdown. And that includes a massive social and economic support package of over 500 billion rand. That money comes out of the existing budget, it comes from UIF, and it also comes from international institutions. And basically what our president is saying is that they're trying to put initiatives in place so that there is relief for the hungry, that there is relief for those that are unemployed and in social distress. There's also extra support for companies and for workers in the formal sector. And then eventually, once things subside and this virus is under control, our president hopes to be able to reopen the economy in phases. So just basically, if we look at this 500 billion that has been raised, yes, some of it will be used for municipalities to ensure that we've got some clean water. It will also be used for food and sanitation and for shelter for the homeless. But also, some of it will be set aside for healthcare, protective gear, field hospitals, and ventilators and medicines. But most of this money is going to be set aside to help people who are below the breadline, as well as to help businesses and people in the formal sector. So let's take a quick look at some of those areas that you might be able to benefit from during these challenging times. And to start with, from a social relief side, there is a special COVID-19 social grant. There is extra food support. And then for the next 6 months, what government has decided to do is to increase things like child support grants. They've been increased by 500 Rand for the next 6 months. There's been an increase in all other grants by 250 Rand a month for the next 6 months. That also gives you an idea of how long government expects things to go on like they are. There's also a new COVID-19 social relief and distress grant, and that is 350 Rand per month for the next 6 months for those people that are unemployed. Government also plans to distribute 250,000 food parcels within the next 2 weeks to help people through this time. There's new food assistant models and vouchers and cash transfers that government will be rolling out. I'm sure we'll see some more news on that in the market shortly. When it comes to business support, business and to cover things like salaries in the formal sector, government has also set up a loan guaranteed scheme. There's also tax relief in the form of not having to pay SDL levies, tax relief on certain PAYE areas. There are even tax holiday periods that employees can take care of. Other areas is there's obviously the UIF wage support. So my proposal is speak to your accountant or your financial advisor if you need some advice on those type of areas. Government has also made 200 billion available through a guaranteed scheme to your small and medium business. And if a business has a turnover of less than 300 million Rand per year, there is a relief available to help cover operational costs. At the moment, government are planning to help over 700,000 small businesses, and this impacts or is a benefit to over 3 million employees. As I've already said, there are tax holidays on skills development and on PAYE, so make use of these opportunities. Speak to your tax person, speak to your practitioner, speak to your accountant to get some proper details on this. Basically, there are options available for individuals, there are options available for the unemployed, there are options even available for those who fall below the breadline. So make use of those opportunities. I'm sure more will be printed in the press and in the media in the days to come. The big thing at the end of the day, even if you're a business, there are support packages to help you and your staff, your workers, to get through this storm. I really want to encourage you, make use of these government incentives and initiatives during this crazy time. I must just add that even our Reserve Bank have pumped a lot of liquidity into the markets to ensure that things can be fairly stable during these crazy times. One of the areas that they've also included is they have reduced interest rates by 2%, and that'll have a huge impact on the repayment on your things like your bond and on other debts that you may have. So build that into your budget. That helps to reduce your month-to-month costs from May going forward. I also want to really encourage you to use the payment arrangement options that have been made available, especially through the banks. If you've got debt at the moment, contact your bank. Don't go bury your head in the sand like an ostrich and pretend your problem isn't there. Face it head on. Most banks have already set up structures. They want you to be able to pay your debts and your bills. They want to try and help you through this process. It impacts them too. And so most banks have set up various structures to assist you, even with access to your fixed deposit if you need access to cash flow over this time. They've also come up with various payment holiday options, even reduced repayments on certain debts during the lockdown period. Now, the bank will be able to assist you with even restructuring possibly your home loan, giving you a bit of a payment holiday, even restructuring that personal loan or your car finance deal. On the credit card side, there's been a reduction in the minimum amounts that you need to pay on certain credit cards. So contact your bank. Make use of those opportunities. Make use of those payment arrangements. Anything that can help you reduce your income slightly during this time is going to be of benefit to you. We've already looked at the tax arrangements that SARS have made and on the UIF side. So contact your tax practitioner to get some advice on that side. But make use of those payment arrangements. Another very important thing is stop non-essential payments during this time. When you batten down the hatches, you want to take care of your essential needs first. So what you can do, if you've got some non-essential things that you are paying on a month-to-month basis, cut them for a short while. It's time to batten down the hatches. Cut those unnecessary costs and expenses during lockdown. Give you an example, you can even take a holiday period on your retirement annuity, or if you've got a flexible investment, you can stop the payment on that. Some life companies have even put some benefits in place where you can reduce your cover slightly during the lockdown period. So there are options available. Chat to your financial advisor about those options that are available to you. The big thing is use this opportunity to cut the non-essentials. Maybe you need to cut some form of entertainment that's costing you money just for the season until after the lockdown period. I must just stress though, during this time, please continue to pay your life cover and disability and income protection insurances. Please continue to pay your health care. Those things can be vital if an emergency or an unforeseen event arises. It's important that you cover those basics. Let me also just add, relating to your investments, markets have been fairly volatile over the last while. I really want to encourage you to see your investments as a whole. Don't go cash in or panic sell at this time. There are incredible opportunities that will arise out of the current market crisis. So hang on in there. Stick to your long-term plan, but make certain that you've got good diversification in your portfolio. It is King Solomon in Ecclesiastes 11:2 who said, invest in 7 ventures, yes in 8. Why? Because you do not know when disaster will come upon the land. So make certain that you've got good diversification in your portfolio. During the lockdown, I also want to encourage you to live the simple life. Get into a simple mode of covering your basics first. The one thing that's taught me about lockdown is that the best things in life are actually free. So live the simple life. Do your best to reduce those unnecessary expenses. Maybe you need to cut one of those luxuries in your budget during this time so that you can get through this period. Try and reduce the debts. Try not to live on credit. Don't increase your debt exposure during this time. Live the simple life. Philippians 4:11 says it like this: I have learnt to be content no matter what I face. I know what it's like to live on almost nothing, and I know what it's like to live on everything. And I've learned the secret to living in every situation, whether with a full stomach or whether empty, whether with plenty or with little. And this is what Paul wrote. He said, I've learned to be content. I've learned the secret to living. And this was it. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Put your hope in God at this time and live the simple life. So in summary, I would really just try and encourage you, if you want to survive the lockdown from a financial perspective, I want to ask you, take a safety first strategy. Ensure your cash flow is okay. Number two, set up a cash reserve. Make use of the government relief options that are available. Make use of the payment arrangements that most banks and institutions have put in place. Stop the non-essentials. Make certain you keep your investment long-term strategy intact, and diversification within your investment is key. And lastly, it's important that you live the simple life. Above all, put your hope in God.